Here's what's coming up on today's show.
Depending on your life expectancy, it sometimes makes sense to have it delayed and take it at 70, but each situation is different. So we have software that we run, which will show each person based on their own numbers, what's the best way to maximize that.
Hello, this is Mark Silverman, managing member and founder of Silverman & Associates, and I'm also a certified financial planner professional. I want to welcome you to the Saving with Silverman podcast. I'm glad you're here. Each week, we'll discuss different financial planning topics because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
Mark, have you ever been to Massachusetts all the way across the country?
That is one state I have not been to yet.
Yeah, I'm the same. Never been there. But it was, we always talk about these federal crimes every week on the show because we want to make sure all our listeners stay out of trouble. But this is one of the most ridiculous ones that I've heard of in a while. Did you realize that it's a federal crime to drive on the beach at the Cape Cod National Seashore without a tire pressure gauge in your car?
I did not know that. I didn't know you could drive on the beach either. A lot of places don't let you do that. But
yeah. Apparently in some spots you can, but
okay.
You're breaking the law if you don't have a tire pressure gauge. I mean,
wow.
That's, I don't know, micromanagement? I don't know what you would call that, but that's kind of crazy. If I ever go there, I'm probably not going to drive on the beach anyway. So,
right.
Well, I thought maybe today we could talk about some classic pre-retiree mistakes, because a lot of people do make mistakes when they're getting closer and closer to retirement age, whatever that is. Give us some examples of people you've seen make these mistakes and tell us about the consequences. There are some people out there, I'm sure, who are investing at age 59 the same way they were investing at 39. I'm sure you've seen that not turn out so well, haven't you?
And I don't know if that's intentional. I think what happens is, we come across a lot of people, and most people have like a 401k or 403b, TSP, whatever, retirement account. That's usually their biggest investment account a lot of times. Mm-hmm. And I'll look at it and say, how did you get to this investment choice? How did you get to this allocation? And usually they just set it up that way when they first set it up. And, maybe somebody at work helped them, maybe it was somebody at the plan sponsor helped them, but they haven't rebalanced, they haven't reallocated since then. So I think that happens a lot where people just let things be, which is a big mistake. You got to be active with this stuff, especially as you get older, you tend to become more conservative. So if you're going to be 59 and you're going to retire soon, that's an issue. But if you're going to be working for a little bit longer, maybe that's not as much of an issue, because as you get closer to retirement, you want to pull some of that risk off the table because you're going to start probably having to draw from these assets in order to maintain your lifestyle. So, it's just being active and paying attention and having intention on what you're trying to accomplish.
One thing that we've talked about a lot on this show from time to time is Social Security. There has to be some strategy involved. You got to figure out exactly when you ought to start taking it and all that sort of thing. But a lot of people just turn it on without any kind of a plan or strategy, and probably don't even know their options.
That's true. We see it a lot. And most people, myself included, the only pension that we have is Social Security. So how do you maximize it? Well, the easiest way is to look at, and we have software that we use. So as part of our planning process, we will actually run a report for each person to show them how to maximize their Social Security. It's all based on life expectancy, of course. And so what's the break point? How long do you have to live in order to maximize it? Because for people that don't know, you can take it early at 62. Most people, full retirement is going to be somewhere, what they call FRA, full retirement age is 66 to 67 currently. And then each year you delay it up until age 70, which is where it maxes out. So 70 is the max you take it. You get 8% guaranteed per year compounded. And as I tell people, the only place that gives you 8% guarantee these days is the government. So I've said that many times. But, how do you maximize that? So, depending on your life expectancy, it sometimes makes sense to have it delayed and take it at 70. But each situation is different. So we have software that we run, which will show each person based on their own numbers, what's the best way to maximize that.
We're talking about classic pre-retiree mistakes that people make here. And a lot of people, especially, we're getting into the time of year here where folks are really focused on tax preparation, but in a lot of cases, they don't really do any tax planning.
Right, and there's a big difference. So we do tax planning in our firm. We don't do tax preparation. Tax preparation is done, whether you do it through TurboTax or you work with a CPA, they're preparing your taxes. But tax planning is being more methodical about it and more strategy as far as different things that you can do to minimize your tax bill legally. We're not talking about tax avoidance, but ways that you can maybe pay less by putting more money into some accounts that are your own rather than giving it to the government. So it's understanding what those rules and regulations are, and they do change every day, or every year, excuse me. And so you could be smart about it and say, well, if you did this instead of this, you will owe less in taxes. And for most people, that makes sense. But not knowing about those things, which most people don't, unfortunately, causes people to pay more taxes than they should.
A lot of people make the mistake of assuming that most of their retirement health care needs are going to be covered by Medicare. And, there are some things you need to know about Medicare. Medicare is really great, but it doesn't really focus on long-term care.
It doesn't cover long-term care at all, correct. So, most people don't make a decision about long-term care. Most people aren't even really worried about it until they've had a loved one or a parent or a family member that's had to go in, and they go, wait, I need to figure out something because I don't want this to happen to me. Most people don't do anything, which is saying that you're going to self-insure, which is an option. But there's a lot of other things out there. There's traditional long-term care insurance, which hasn't been as popular lately. But there's some life insurance policies that offer long-term care coverage, which is the way that we think makes a lot of sense. It's a good way to leverage maybe some old life insurance policies that have cash value to offer long-term care if you do need it. So it's just making an informed decision, knowing what your options are. And most people don't know what their options are, so they do nothing, which means they self-insure, which isn't always the best option.
Some folks out there have not optimized all of their opportunities and maybe haven't done a good job saving over the years. And then as they get closer and closer to retirement, they say, hey, wait, I need to make up for lost ground here. And they take on a additional risk. And that can be a classic mistake that a lot of people make.
It can. I mean, if you are trying to make up for lost time and put too much at risk last year, you took probably a pretty significant hit, which isn't a problem if you're still working and you still have some time to go. But let's say you're retiring now, your nest egg just shrunk quite a bit. So it's taking calculated risks, making sure that you understand the risks, which is also a function of how much time you have to invest, when you're going to be needing that money. So if you need it sooner rather than later, you shouldn't be taking as much risk versus if you have more time, your ability to take risk is a lot greater.
You've been listening to the Saving with Silverman podcast. If you have any questions at all about your financial situation, please give Mark Silverman a call. Again, his number is 520-333-7601, or go online to savingwithsilverman.com. For Mark Silverman, I'm Ron Stutz. We'll see you next time on the Saving with Silverman podcast.
The Saving with Silverman podcast is brought to you by Silverman & Associates Wealth Management, LLC, based in Tucson, Arizona. The show is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and everywhere you listen to shows. Subscribe to the show on your favorite app today and never miss an episode. Just search for Saving with Silverman to find us, or visit savingwithsilverman.com to listen to past episodes, to contact Mark, and to learn more about how to make smarter decisions with your money.
Did you know that Mark Silverman also has a radio show? Tune in to Saving with Silverman Saturdays and Sundays at 3 p.m. on AM 790 KNST.
All matters discussed on this show are for informational purposes only. Opinions expressed are solely those of Silverman & Associates Wealth Management, LLC, and staff. All topics covered are believed to be from reliable sources. However, Silverman & Associates Wealth Management, LLC, makes no representation as to its accuracy or completeness. This show shall in no way be construed as a solicitation to sell securities or investment advisory services to residents of any state other than Arizona or where otherwise permitted. Topics should be discussed with your individual advisor prior to implementation. Fee-based financial planning and investment advisory services offered through Silverman & Associates Wealth Management, LLC, a registered investment advisor in the state of Arizona. Insurance products and services are offered through Silverman & Associates, an affiliated company.